All right, welcome everyone. I'm super excited to be here presenting on this topic. As Elena said, I am with the Small Business Administration. We have an office in Providence. I am one of the outreach and marketing specialists. And if you have any questions or if you'd like to connect with somebody one-on-one, I do encourage you to reach out to Elena. We have incredible counselors at the Rhode Island SBDC. So please take advantage of all of the resources we have across the state. I'm biased. We have a really great support system across the state. Elena spoke to this a little bit, but at the SBDC, they're there for all aspects, no matter what phase you are in your business, whether you're just starting up, whether you're even in the ideation phase and you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur. And they do offer tons of resources. She did mention the one-on-one confidential counseling. They also do legal clinics. They also do all kinds of things. So I encourage you to take advantage and really use the resources available to help grow your business to the next level. So today we're going to talk about media. I forgot to turn off my camera, so I'm not looking at multiple screens. So I think it's too late to do that. Let's see. All right. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the power of media. I know we're all here to learn how to do this. And public relations, also known as PR, and can be a great way to generate attention for your business. And you don't necessarily have to hire a PR agency to get these results. You as a small business owner, you have access to a lot of these tools. Some of them are free, some of them are paid. But the most important thing is just to be aware that it's going to take some time to research and some consistency on your end, and figuring out not only your brand voice, if you don't already have that, but also like the media outlets you're connecting to. So we're going to cover all of that and how to get it going. So this image here is an example of a media placement. The Today Show often is one of the media placements that will have products on there. And there's a direct correlation between media placements and then your online presence and your traffic and your sales. And you'll see like a lot of products, once they get that TV placement, you'll see the As Seen On logo on their website. So when you get these media placements, one of the most important things you get is something called link juice. And that's just a fun way to describe how links in different news publications can signal to Google that your website is valuable and that what people are searching for, you offer, and it's a relevant search result. So Google bases this information on what's called domain authority. And high-value media placements and their websites have a higher domain authority than most local websites. You also see an increase of your traffic, and that's visitors to your website. Some people will see your brand online and go directly and type in yourbrand.com. You also have referral traffic, which is where if your brand is linked on a high domain or any website really, and somebody clicks on that and goes to your website, that's called referral traffic. There's also the As Seen On. And, here at the SBDC, we love seeing our clients get top publications. And then you also have syndication, and that's where media outlets leverage content. And so if you get a high value placement, for example, Today's Show or Forbes, a lot of the smaller media, like local media and other publications, will pick up the same story and syndicate it. So instead of you getting that one big media placement, oftentimes it multiplies and you'll have multiple placements, and that's called syndication. So I just wanted to talk very quickly about domain authority. This is a score that predicts how well you're going to rank on the search engines, right? So when you type in any search queue, usually the results that have the top spots have really high domain authorities. And the score can range from 0 to 100. And the higher the score, the greater the likelihood that it's ranking well. And this score is calculated on a wide variety of factors, like your credibility, your relevance, the quality of your backlinks, the content on your website, your technical optimization. These are all things that determine your domain authority. And I did post a link right here on the bottom of the slide where it says check your domain authority. And this is a free tool for you to go in and check your own domain authority. We'll say local page, smaller local websites.
I came late. Are we going to get?
Can we get everybody on mute, please?
Yep, sorry, Jasmine, I did cover that we will be recording this and sending everything out.
Okay, so when you go and check your domain authority, I don't want you to be discouraged if your domain authority is not super high. It is very common for small local businesses not to have a super high domain authority. However, you can influence that and increase your domain authority by having very high quality backlinks, which this strategy is great for. Also your SEO strategy, which includes your content and your technical optimization. That's your on page and making sure all your sites have great site speed and your images are optimized and all of that. You can influence your domain authority. So if you see a number and you're not super happy with it, you can do things to influence that and get a higher number. All right, so let's talk about getting media ready and where to start. So before seeking publicity, you want to make sure you have an updated media kit, and this will be the backbone of your promotional tools. And you want to make sure you include your founder story or your brand story, your biography, your business brand story, a high quality of photo of yourself or your product, photos of your products and services, and then an up-to-date press release. And you can use an platform such as Canva. They have tons of free, if you just put in media kit or brand kit or whatever into Canva, you'll get a ton of different ones. And you want to make sure that you're picking something that aligns with your brand. And also remember that these are also very editable. So if you like the layout of something, but the colors don't match with your brand, all of that is editable. But this is a good place to start if you don't already have one in place. And this basically just shows these media outlets a high-level overview of your information, right? Like who you serve, your reach, and all of those things. So I'm going to stop and see if anybody has any questions before we go on to building your media list. I can't see the chat.
Hi, Amanda. We have no current questions that are relevant to what has been spoken of so far.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to talk about building your media list and who goes on your list. So a media contact list in PR is a compilation of media contacts. This can include journalists, podcasts, newsletter creators, influencers, local news, local publications, lots of towns. I heard Newport and Barrington mentioned a lot of towns have like small local magazines or publications or local newspapers. In short, it's just a collection of relevant people that could be interested in covering and writing about your product service, right? So this is not the be all end all. Think about all the different opportunities, right? Like just a few years ago, even podcasters and influencers wouldn't necessarily be on this. But so I want you to think outside of the box and different media and placements that you could get that could provide significant value to your business. So when you're thinking about what to include, I like to make sure that I like everything organized, right? So you want to kind of create a database. And now this could be different depending on your strategy, right? And like, are you doing more general PR for more scheduled events, or are you hoping to get coverage for, say, to be on a shopping list for a holiday or a small business week or whatever? Some of the things that to me I always put on are you want to have your contact's first and last name. You want to have their title or professional role, their publication or news outlet. I like to get a link to their website and social media so I can stay on top of how active they are. Their beat or specialty or niche, this means like, what are they covering specifically? Because if you have a technology product or service, you don't want to be wasting time reaching out to media that does like beauty, right? Or health and fitness. You want to make sure that you're getting very specific about who you're targeting. Their contact information could be phone number, could be email, could be DM, could be whatever. And then any noteworthy work, right? So if they've done coverage on similar products or services or, any relevant details, I like to add that in there as well. And I have an example of what this looks like. And on this slide, you can see it kind of lines what we just talked about, the outlet, the name, role, email, all of that. Now, I did include a link to this. So when you get your presentation, there is a link to this format that it's a Google Sheet and you can download it and customize it to yourself. So the easiest way to do this is either to use Google or Excel. There are also paid tools such as Prowly, Incision, which keep the databases for you. And also if you have a CRM, you can also use this and use tags to organize your list. So there are multiple ways you can do it. Pick what makes sense for your business, right? Like if you're not at a place to pay for a tool like Prowly or Cision, which can be costly, a lot of this can be done manually. It's just going to take a little bit more work from you. So I just want to talk very quickly about pay to play versus like a Harrow or a Quoted. And for those of you who don't know, Harrow and Quoted are websites where journalists put out inquiries for topics they're interested in and then get the public to answer them so they can pick from a pool of people that they want to feature. So you want to remember that these are not the same things. Like buying a media list is not the same thing as a paid Harrow or Quoted. When you buy media lists, a lot of the information is often outdated or incomplete, and they're sold to multiple people. So what happens is a lot of these people on media lists are getting bombarded with irrelevant things. And so you just might not get the response you're looking for. And also sometimes the emails and contacts that you paid for are not always accurate. So with the pre-made media list that you're purchasing, you can't always trust the quality. Like I said, a lot of it could be outdated or just wrong. And then you also run the risk of ruining your reputation and, getting your brand labeled as spammy. And I would say that journalists tend to talk to each other, especially those in like smaller niches that are more focused. So you want to make sure that that you're being mindful of how you're contacting these media outlets. And then one also thing I'd like to note is that when you purchase email addresses, sometimes these emails have been illegally harvested, and then that can get yourself into some trouble with contacting people whose information has been illegally harvested. So you just want to make sure that you're mindful, and I'm going to discourage you from purchasing a media list. All right, do we have any questions before we move on? All right.
We do not.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about target audiences. So if you've done any workshops with me before, you're going to know that you almost will never get away from this topic for me because it's such an important aspect to your business. You really have to know who your target audience is. Every single strategy you create in your business is always geared towards your target audience. Nothing that we will ever talk about to help you grow your business is ever going to be super general. You have to get really granular with who you're targeting. Once you do that, I want you to prioritize your list. I want you to be as specific as you can. Just remember, your product, while it could be for lots of people, everything is not for everybody. And while, most people go for some of these coveted media placements like Forbes or Today Show, but I want you to think about, does it make sense for your business, right? And really think about your goals. And then I kind of want you to prioritize your list. So first, I want you to think about which outlets and media sources are most relevant to your business, right? These are your tier one, these are your prioritized media contacts. And then what does top media placement mean for your goals? And how did you arrive to that? So is it you're looking for these features in Forbes because your CEO wants to be there, or is it because your target audience reads these publications? So, and I also want you to think about like the goals of this media placement, right? Is it just to get brand awareness, or are you hoping to have a call to action where people are actually taking the next step and coming to your website and spending time that you have the opportunity to remarket and retarget them and kind of build that relationship between you and them and your brand? So I want you to think about the who, what, where, why, the basic things we learn and when we're writing and, we're speaking to somebody, right? You want to have a clear idea of who your audience is. Like, who are you trying to reach? I want you to think of things like age, gender, profession, like all in the psychographics as well, right? Like where they're spending their time online, what they're interested in. How does your target audience consume information? Are they consuming videos? Are they reading long form content? Are they listening to audiobooks? Are they listening to podcasts? Where are they spending time online? Which media outlets are most popular amongst your target audience, right? Like who does your audience go to for reliable information? And then which media outlets are accessible to PR and outreach like yours, right? And which journalists are focusing on these topics? Because while it might sound in your head like a great idea to get some of these placements, it might not make sense for your business and your target audience. So I don't want you to spin wheels trying to get like a coveted media placement and like Forbes or the Today Show if it doesn't make sense for your target audience. I also want you to think about the media format, right? Like think about where and how specifically your target audience is behaving, right? Like that behavioral. Is it somebody who's interacted with your stories when you've pitched to them? Like, do you have like a relationship with some of these people? Have you done past collaboration? Are these people engaging with your content? Is this something that your target audience or the journalist is tweeting about, right? I also want you to think about the geography of your media outlet, right? Like if you have a very local business, a national media placement might not make sense for you. And then we spoke about this earlier, but like your media format preferences, right? Like are your target audiences consuming video? Are they spending time on social media? Are they downloading and saving infographics? Are they reading longer articles? Are they spending time on listening to podcasts and audiobooks? And then you also want to think about the different industry experts, right? So you have like traditional journalists, you have some that's only write about one singular topic. You also have these like modern digital influencers and content creators. So you want to think about where your target audience is getting information and what makes sense. And then I also just want to mention there's also segmentation based on cultural differences and language preferences, right? So if you have a product that is very specific or has a cultural significance, there's also an opportunity for you there to expand beyond just traditional media. And then you want to get as niche down as you can. It's just not about finding reporters or journalists with narrow reporting beats. It's about doing your research and make sure to only add a contact to your list if you're sure they cover what you have to offer. Don't waste your time building lists on people that are not specifically focused to your industry. You want to focus on publications and journalists covering brands and topics as similar to yours as possible. Now, if you have something super unique that's never been done before, you may have to get creative on how you're evaluating these potential journalists. But you want to make sure that, if you have an auto body shop and you're talking about parts and DIY and getting your car, whatever, you don't want to be targeting beauty editor because it just doesn't make sense. And while that might sound like, of course, Amanda, you don't, you'd be surprised at how many people spin their wheels focusing on just creating a big list instead of a focus list. So I want you to be very granular about who you're hoping to talk to. And if you can even get even a deeper layer deeper, think about the difference between somebody who covers just general cosmetics and somebody covers natural cosmetics or organic cosmetics. So try to get as granular as you can. Now we're going to go into finding contacts. Do we
Amanda,
have
we
any
have some
questions?
questions.
Sure.
So can you talk about HARO and QWOTED
Quoted, yep.
a bit more?
Yep. So Harrow and Quoted are Help a Reporter Out and Quoted, and it's a website. They're both websites you sign up for, and journalists will put out media inquiries based on industry. So they'll break it down by like health and wellness, real estate, and they have like 15 different industries. And then they'll say, looking for feedback on what is the best way to preserve your berries in your refrigerator, right? Like you'll see these things, and then they'll give you a general email for you to respond to, and then you have an opportunity to say like, hey, I have this really cool berry saver product, and if you wash your berries and put it in this, they'll last up to 15 days. Here's a link to my website. And then if the journalist decides to use your quote, that's why it's called quoted, they'll publish your quote and then attribute a link back to your website. And some of them are free and some of them are paid. So Harrow, I think, is moving more towards a pay to play, but it was free for a very long time. And Quoted, I believe, has a monthly reoccurring membership to be able to answer. And that's a direct line of contacts to media outlets versus you finding media contacts and then pitching them.
Thank you. And then we have another question. How do you know what type of media your target is getting their information from?
You come off mute and explain a little bit more. I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think I pronounced.
Yes. So
Okay.
I just was curious when you mentioned, make sure you're speaking to, you're using the right media to connect with your journalists or connect with your contacts or people that you want to target by knowing how they get their info. What's their preference? What do they listen to podcasts? Do they, look at newsletters or whatever? How do you know? How would you find out? How would you know how these contacts are getting information?
You mean your target audience, how they're getting information?
Yeah, your target audience. How does one find that out or get a sense of that?
That is done in your marketing research and figuring out where your target audience spends time. And that is some trial and error, but there's also there's groups on Facebook, like you can go and see if there's people who are, let's say you're a cat groomer, like you can do Google cat grooming and look at, or cat grooming communities, cat grooming publications, cat grooming podcasts, and and look at the number of people who spend time and engage in that content. And it's basically boils down to market research and then also analyzing your own business data, whether you're using something like Google Analytics or your own website analytics to see the types of sites that are referring traffic to your website.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
That's it, Amanda. Thank you.
All right. So finding contacts. So the easiest way to do this is if you have a database like Crowley or Cision, they make it super easy, but this is an expensive option, right? Like a lot of these media databases don't even give you outright pricing. Like you have to have a sales call to get pricing. However, this is the fastest and easiest way and most direct line to media outlets. And then you can use filters such as location and industry and, how many visits they get to their website and all of that. But there is a manual way to do this. And then the easiest way is to start playing around with your keywords. And this is why doing your initial keyword and target audience research ahead of time will make this so much easier. And you just want to go in a platform like Google, Twitter, LinkedIn, even like the social media. And you want to type in whatever your keyword is and then editor or journalist. LinkedIn is really great for this because you can search by jobs, but you can also find this in just plain old Google. You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for a food blogger in Toronto, you can type that in, or like a tech reporter in Chicago, you can do that. This will take some trial and error. So don't get discouraged, but this is a manual alternative to being able to not have to pay for a database. And you want to think of like all the different ways you could use different keywords, right? So when you're going through the keywords that you want to rank for in the Google search results, right? When you were starting your website and you were doing your keyword and your backend SEO, you want to think of those keywords and then type in words like editor, journalist, podcaster, all of that. And then think about it to the next level where you say, like, instead of a cosmetic journalist, you want to think of like an organic skincare journalist and try to narrow down these keywords and just go down that rabbit hole and compile a list that way. Another great way to do this is on Twitter. lots of journalists and media outlets are very active on Twitter or X. And so you want to go through and then find them. And then usually when you find them, you're able to see all the different publications, because a lot of them don't always work for one singular publication. And you can see the type of articles and content they're putting out. You can also reverse engineer this. And I like to call this manual, but with a little razzle-dazzle. So what you want to do is you want to identify the media outlets you want to target, and then you want to reverse engineer it. So you can do this by going to see where your competitors' media placements are, and then go back and find the editor or the publisher, the article writer of that, and then redo that. You can also find this information if you do an SEO audit and you use something like Ubersuggest or Ahrefs. You can enter in your competitor's domain and they'll tell you all of the places that are backlinking to them. And then you can go to those articles and see who's writing them. You can also use something called Google News or Alerts, and it's just news.google.com, or set up a Google alert and you can put in your competitor's information and see where they're getting placements. And you can do this as well for reporters. And then sometimes this is even better because you can get better new information, and you can also see how recent they've written about the topic, so you can understand if it's relevant or not. And an example here is if you just type in, one of my favorite brands right now is Vacation. And so I just went to see all on news.google, all the different media placements they're getting, right? And just look to see they got a Pop Sugar, a New York Times, a US, and a CNN. And if you go into each of these articles, you can see who wrote them and then who gave feedback on them. And then you can contact them if you have a similar product or service. So to kind of jog your memory, LinkedIn and Twitter are free, and these are tools for finding media contacts. If you're trying to look for outlets, publications, and blogs, Google and Google News are also free. And if you want to do some competitor research and see who is linking to your competitor, you can use something like Ubersuggest and Ahrefs, which are both free. However, they do limit how many searches you get a day. So I think Ubersuggest gives you 3, and Ahrefs may give you a little bit more. And you can go and check to see who's linking to your competitor. It doesn't have to be a local competitor. It can be like if you have if you're in Rhode Island and you modeled your business after a business in Miami, you can put in the Miami domain and it'll tell you everyone who's linking to them, so you can get an idea about the type of publications they're getting. All right, next we'll talk about strategy. Do you have any questions?
We do not.
Perfect. So we'll just move right along. So you want to think about your strategy. Are you doing like a more traditional press calendar where you're going to be reaching out about like your events or holidays or different launches, or like a monthly strategy? So you want to think about like what is going to work for your business, and you always want to think about like what event, who's putting on the event, like what is going on, when did it happen, where did it happen? So you want to think about, all the things that would make sense to include in your outreach, but you also want to think about how and when you're outreaching. So like, is this going to be something that's a monthly thing for you? Is this something that's a quarterly thing for you? Is this something based on holidays? Are you only reaching out for events or only reaching out for launches? So you want to think about what strategy makes the most sense for your business. Or you might say, I want something more daily, where you're going into these websites and you're saying, I want to reach out to media outlets daily and just answer as many things I can and hope I get a backlink. So that's also, you have to think about what makes sense for your business and what makes sense for whoever's doing this for you. And if it's yourself, like, do you have the capacity to add a daily strategy? So it's really comes back to the goals of your business. You want to monitor the activity of the journalist, right? So if you notice that like a journalist wrote an article recently, they're probably more likely to respond to your pitch. If they're getting published frequently, then it's probably safe to keep them on your media list. However, if you're noticing somebody you put on your media list hasn't posted on your topic or your target audience's topic in 2 years, then it's probably not a good idea to pitch them, right? If they're not currently active, it doesn't make sense to pitch them. And then you want to also check their social media, because oftentimes they will be very active on social media. As I said earlier, Twitter's a great place to check for journalists, because they are if they're active, they're going to be posting and reposting and commenting pretty frequently. And so, monitoring their posts can be a good clue as to what they would like to talk more about. And this is a local reporter who you can see focuses very heavily on the real estate market and what's going on. So if that's your industry, it would make sense to start a conversation with this person. And you just want to make sure that whatever they're posting about, you're still within that niche, right? Like you wouldn't want to pitch Alexa here about your organic skincare, because what she's focusing on is real estate, right, in the market. So you just want to make sure that they're active on social media, because if they haven't posted in a couple of years, then chances are they're not going to be super active, right? And if they're publishing, they're going to constantly be reposting or sharing where they've been published, because it helps them grow their audience. So it's a good signal if they're active or not. So you want to think about your pitch, and what you want to think about is your angle, right? Like, be intentional about who you pitch. Just don't do mass blanket pitches. You want this to be very personal. So if you know that your target audience is reading a specific publication and it makes sense for you, so you want to make sure that when you're reaching out to these journalists, that you're keeping your topic relevant to what they cover, right? And like, they're always thinking about, how does this benefit my reader? Understanding the tone of the person who writes these articles. So if your brand is very like satirical and has dry humor, then you probably wouldn't want to pitch someone who has a different tone, right? Or if somebody's tone is very professional and technical, or talks about, like tech or science, then, you want to make sure if you're pitching your product, your skincare product, to them, that you go at it at an angle that matches their tone. And then always think about it. How does your business, product, or service benefit their readership? Because at the end of the day, these media outlets want engaging content that makes their readers take a next step or subscribe to their list. So you always want to think about, when you're pitching these media outlets, like, how does it benefit their readership? And if it doesn't, then it's not a good contact for you. Then you want to think about like warming them up, right? Like if you're contacting someone for the very first time, right? That cold versus warm pitch. When you're contacting someone from the very first time and you go super hard and you're like, I have the best vegetable chopper on the planet, and here's my link and you should link to it, they're probably not even going to respond to you, right? But if you warm up this reporter and this media outlet, and you say, for example, like, hey, I noticed you posted an article on this, and I'm not sure if you consider this angle, but here's a pretty cool alternative or improved method that could benefit your readership. You want to think about targeting topics. It even helps sometimes to mention past articles. Like, you can say, hey, I noticed you wrote about the Cuisinart chopper, but have you heard about this new feature that Ninja has? And, so you want to do that. And then you want to engage with them. So if you have the opportunity to like comment and share on social media their posts to kind of warm them up, that's also a good way. Because most reporters are completely overwhelmed with stuff in their inbox that if you don't warm them up, you're unlikely to get a response. And then you want to make sure you have a really good subject line, right? So you want to give these people a reason to even open your email, and you want to be brief. You don't want to, if you're sending somebody a media pitch and it's like 12 paragraphs, they're not reading it, right? Because they have to get through 87 emails before their 2:00 meeting and a 5:00 deadline, and you're giving your life story. But you want to make sure that you keep it succinct. You want to include relevant points, and then end with a call to action. If you'd like more information, or if you'd like to continue this conversation, if you'd like to learn more, here's how to reach me. And then you want to come in service. And I say this because, like I said, journalists are often so overwhelmed. They often have very tight deadlines, and they're given their deadlines with not a whole lot of time. So usually they're trying to come up with stuff to flyer their seats, right? Some of it will be very planned, like holiday stuff, events will be very planned, but also some of these editors will be like, I need a story on this by Friday at 2 p.m. So they're overwhelmed, right? So you want to come in service and think about all the things, you want to think about them in a considerable light. So if you want them to answer, open your email, you want them to see the email in their inbox and be like, "Ooh, this could be good," right? Like, how does it benefit their readers? How does it benefit them? So always think about that when you're approaching media outlets. You always want to track everything. I track all submissions, I track all quotes, and sometimes if they quote you or mention your product or service, they won't always reach out. Like, they don't always have time to follow up. So always have a Google alert on your own brand name and always constantly be searching for your own stuff, right? And keep a spreadsheet and then track the articles that you get mentioned in. This really helps with leveraging your social media and like reposting and all of that. So make sure you're tracking everything. And then you want to follow up if they have a bigger story and you know that they are taking a little bit longer to get something done. You don't always have to wait for a reply. You can follow up politely after a few days and just be like, hey, I just want to follow up on this. Don't be pushy or annoying, but you also want to show that you have a continued interest. Don't be aggressive. If they ignore you, don't continue to email them, because while this story might not be for you, the next one, they might be like, you know what? Jonathan had a really great pitch and I really like the product. It's not going to fit for this article, but it'll work for this. And they may not even tell you that. They may just have it in the back of their mind and come back to you later. So you want to make sure you're always thinking about that relationship and how you communicate with people, because it can have longer term benefits. So in conclusion, you want to be patient, grasshopper. Don't be disheartened if you don't hear back from a media pitch. Sometimes breaking through can take time. So be persistent, learn how to perfect your pitch, right? Like the first time you pitch a media outlet is probably not going to be your best work. So you constantly want to think about how to perfect your pitch, how to perfect your follow-up. And successful PR doesn't happen overnight. So you want to make sure you're just doing media consistently, right? And you're tracking everything. And Databox did a survey that said only 10% of media pitches actually make it to the press. So if you're only doing, media outreach 5 times a year, you might not ever get a placement. So you want to think about how this is a numbers game and how does this fit into your overall strategy and how can you make that work? So I included some local resources. If you are a women-owned business, we have the Center for Women in Enterprise, and they offer lots of different workshops and one-to-one counseling. We have here the Small Business Development Center, which I said, please take advantage of. There's some incredible counselors here. We have SCORE, which also offers some mentorship and business trainings. And then if you're a veteran or active duty military or military spouse, we also have a veteran business outreach center here, and they cover New England. I also included some links to some of the resources included in this presentation. So if you wanted to go a little bit deeper in anything, these are the links. You can go down the rabbit hole. And then I included here on sites like Harrow and how to use it. So if you wanted to explore that strategy, I included a link here for you to go down that rabbit hole. And we'll end with some questions.